Welcome to the Gita in Action podcast. We are back after a big retreat weekend. We are back and we are on our 100th episode. 100th episode. So we started this back in August of last year. We've been going steady twice a week, Monday, Thursdays, 7:30 a.m. And here we are, 100th episode, and we're in the 7th chapter of the Gita. We're reading through the Gita verse by verse, and we're kind of diving in deep to the meaning of each verse and also its relevance to our lives. And many of us have been here together for a while, and it's so we were just talking about how uplifting it is to study these truths with other seekers and to just be real and vulnerable about the struggles we go through in our spiritual life and how we try to just make a little bit of progress every day. Even if it's just like this, like the size of a needle, like just like a tiny little bit of progress every day, even amidst all of the setbacks and of real life, right? When real life starts coming into play. So thank you all for being here, taking this journey together. And if you want to follow along with us and you have a Gita, you can. If not, I flash it up on the screen, and that's no problem. I flash the verses up on the screen. Today, we're going to start with verse 22. We're going to start with verse 22. I think that's where we are. So, chapter 7, verse 22. Before we do that, Shakti, do you want to lead us in some prayers?
Yes, I'd be honored. Om Jnana Timrandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chaksur Umilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kara Mayam Danati Sva Pandatikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Parakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savaitam Parijana Sukritan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahaguna Lalita Shri Vasakan Vitams Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancha Garungi Radhe Vrindavanishvari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Prananami Hari Priye Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvya Evacha Patitanam Pavembhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadahara Shri Vasari Guru Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Thank you, Shakti. These prayers are such a nice way to kind of set the intention for the class in thanking our teachers and our lineage. You know, our lineage is disciplic succession, so it's passed down from teacher to student to teacher to student, right? And so these prayers just kind of invoke auspiciousness in that we're acknowledging that and appreciating that disciplic succession of knowledge, because that's why we're all here today, right? None of this is, it comes from me. Right? None of this comes from me. It all comes from my teachers, and they got it from their teachers, and they got it from their teachers, right? So and we're all blessed enough to have this opportunity to to receive this knowledge, right? And to try to apply it to our lives. So with that, we are going to start with text 22. I'll share my screen. And then whenever you're ready, Stella.
Endowed with such a faith, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and obtains his desires. But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone.
Thank you. Okay, so we're talking about demigods in this section. And or in these couple of few verses, there's some references to demigods. And just to kind of get clear on what demigods actually are, a lot of times, like in Hindu or Vedic philosophy, people think that like it's a philosophy of many gods, right? Oh, you worship many gods. I only have one God. Right. So just to kind of set the record straight on demigods, on the positions of demigods, demigods are like posts that like there's one supreme God, right? We call that one supreme God Krishna. And Krishna entrusts certain responsibilities of the universe to these demigods. And they're like managerial post. You know how in a government there's like you have the president, and then from there you have different people that are responsible for different divisions of things. This is like demigods, right? They're responsible for different divisions of the universe, but they're not God. There's one God, and these demigods they're empowered by God, right? So they kind of they kind of act on behalf of God in that. Okay, so just to kind of set it straight, when we say demigods, this is what we mean because it's Vedic philosophy. It's so vast in kind of the cosmology of the universe and how it functions and how it's carried out. And so these are just some details, right? Just so that we don't get lost a little bit when we hear demigods and we think, oh, there's so many gods. Not really, right? And demigods are also are quite different than God. Not only are they are they lower and they're kind of taking their post, they're acting on behalf, but God is completely spiritual. And the demigods, what they're doing is more material. So we're going to go into that a little bit. Okay, so this verse says that Krishna explains that when someone worships a demigod with faith, they may indeed get their desires fulfilled, right? But those blessings aren't really coming from the demigods, again, because the demigods are only acting because Krishna's empowering them. So what happens is people pray to the demigods for certain material things, like, I want a good wife, or, let it rain on my crops so that I have a good harvest this season, right? Very material things. And the demigods, and they do certain rituals and such, and then the demigods fulfill their desires, right? But they're material desires. People are going to the demigods for material desires. And behind that, behind the demigods, granting their desires, Krishna is empowering them. Right? So we can think of it like a prince who's left the kingdom. He isn't ready to return home, but the father still wants to provide for him. Right? So the king arranges for a minister to give the prince an allowance. Right? So from the prince's perspective, it looks like the minister is the one providing, but in reality, everything is coming from the king. Right? In this example, Krishna would be the king. Right? Or a more modern example for us, we can think of like a child opening the refrigerator and thinking, wow, this fridge is amazing. Right? It gives me food every time I open it. But the child is forgetting that it's the parent who bought the groceries and stocked the fridge in the first place. Right? So in the same way, the demigods may be appearing to grant material results, but behind it all is Krishna who's making it possible. They can't act independently of his will, right? And they certainly can't surpass him. So these are just some kind of examples to kind of explain and relate to the structure of how kind of the universe is carried out in Vedic cosmology. Right? But the problem, what happens with people who worship these demigods, right? They often forget this bigger picture, because what they do is they turn to the demigods when they're eager for some quick material benefit. Right? Like just like I said, like I want a nice house or a child, or and then they just turn to the demigod that's responsible for that area of the universe, and that's what they're focused on. Right? When a pure devotee, right, what we're all aspiring to be here, they try not to think that way, right? If they truly need something, they go straight to Krishna, and even then, constantly asking for material things isn't really the heart of devotion. Right? Because we want to get to that place where we know that God is our best friend, has our best interest at heart, and therefore we trust him completely. Right? We know that whatever arrangements he's making in our lives are for our benefit. And therefore we don't need to go in and be little mini controllers, right? And try to kind of mess it all up. Right? No, we trust God. And therefore we just surrender to God. And therefore our relationship with God is one of just love, devotion, surrender. Right? We're not looking for anything, especially material. That's what we're trying to do here in this bhakti yoga practice is cultivate a relationship like that. And we might not be there yet, and that's part of the process, right? We might have mixed motives for approaching God. And that's okay because we'll get purified as we approach God and as we have this relationship with him. He'll purify us. Right? But just to know that that's what we're aspiring for. And that a lower level of consciousness is approaching God or these demigods, these posts for certain material things. Right? Because that's when we're trying to control. We're saying, I know what's best for me. I know what would make me happy. This is what I want. God, please grant me this. Right? Like a metaphysical Amazon Prime. Where it's like, okay, scroll. I'll take one of those, two of these, no suffering. Thank you. Right. So and relationship with demigods, it's good because you're still acknowledging a power higher than yourself, right? You're still reliant on a power higher than yourself. That's good, right? That's a sign that your consciousness is growing. But maybe you're just not quite there to the place of, God, I am your servant. Do with me whatever you will. Right? And it's okay because it takes some time, right? We have to build trust. And just like all relationships take trust. You don't like go out with someone on a first date and say, okay, let's move in together and get married. Right? That's good. You're not going to be ready for that. It's going to be pretty unstable for you. Even if that person is super wonderful and reliable and all of the things, that's going to be a little jolting for your system. Right? So it's going to take a little bit of time to develop this kind of relationship with God where we can trust him like our best friend. Where we know that he has our back no matter what. There's not even a question in our mind. Something in our life goes away that causes a little pain or that we wouldn't have chosen. And we think, thank you, God. Because we know that whatever it is for our best interest because we have that trust. Right? Okay, that takes time. And that's why we practice this bhakti yoga practice. That's what this bhakti yoga is. It's trying to develop this kind of relationship with God. And there's practices that we do so that we can do that, just like you go out on a date with somebody that you're kind of courting to see if this is a good match, or, you spend time together. You do fun things together, right? We do these things with God in a sense, right? We chant japa. We chant God's names, right? Because we know that chanting God's names is direct association with God, right? God is in his names. The sound of his name and God is one and the same. So by sitting quietly and chanting these names, this is how we spend time with God. This is how we start to develop this relationship. And depending on the sincerity of our intention, right? How sincere we are and how committed we are. Our relationship, just like a relationship that we have in material terms, grows at different rates. Right? Depending on how much we put into it and how sincere we are in our intention. Right? So somebody who's approaching the demigods, they usually have the strong desires burning inside of them. Strong desires for some kind of worldly enjoyment. Right? So worship of the demigods, it's material, while service to Krishna is completely spiritual. So is this making sense? Right? Kind of understanding the role of demigods and the difference, and even demigods have kind of a function. Like they're actually, we're going to go into that next. I'll go ahead and tell you why demigods are even kind of important in Vedic philosophy. Right? And this is just the fact that God set up this system and has these demigods is just an example of how zealous he is. Right? I said zealous, not jealous. Right? In many Abrahamic traditions, God's often described as like jealous, right? Like he doesn't tolerate worship of other gods. Right? And he even approves of destroying their places of worship. Right? But the Gita is kind of painting a different picture here. It's showing us how zealous God is, right? And what do I mean by that? we think about the word jealous. Jealous is about protecting one's position, right? We all know jealousy, right? Probably too well, right? Making sure no one else gets the attention. But zeal, it's caring deeply for someone's growth and doing whatever it takes to help them move forward. So Krishna is not worried about competing with other gods. He knows that he is the source of everything. Right? His concern is about our spiritual evolution. Right? So he knows that not everyone is ready to worship him directly. So what does he do? Out of compassion, he arranges for such souls to begin their journeys by worshiping other deities. Just like we were talking about. Right? It's like a spiritual kindergarten. So at least a person is learning to honor someone greater than themselves. Right? And that humility starts to kindle the mood of devotion. Right? So if something, their plants get a good rains that season, they acknowledge that something outside of themselves is responsible for this. Right? That's like the beginning. That's like a little spark of spiritual life. Right? When we start to take ourselves out of the center, right? Think that we're the controller, we take all the credit. Right? And we start to acknowledge that there's higher being out there responsible for our lives, for some of these things in our lives. Right? And so it's Vedic philosophy provides just like such a nice progression to realize God. Right? And this is just like a little step. It's like spiritual kindergarten. Right? And in the last verse, we even heard that he strengthens their faith in demigods. Right? If that's where people are, if that's where their consciousness is, he meets them where they're at and he strengthens their faith, knowing that that's an integral step in their spiritual evolution. Right? And then he empowers the demigods to bless them. That's what he says in this verse. Right? But notice here that nowhere in the Gita does Krishna encourage violent intolerance towards other gods. Right? That's what a jealous god would do. Instead, he's gradually guiding people from wherever they are. Right? But he's still stating, Krishna clearly states that he's the supreme. Okay? One supreme God. Let's make sure we're aligned on that, right? One supreme God, the source of all gods. Right? And he does eventually call us to give up all of their worship and surrender to him alone, right? This is the conclusion of the Gita. That's where we're going in all of this. That's our whole study of the Gita. That's where we're going. Give up all of their worship and surrender to God alone, right? But this isn't jealousy, right? This is zeal. It's his loving eagerness for those who are ready to come straight to him to do so without delay. Right? Because that's the path that brings the quickest and the deepest fulfillment. And we know, right? Bhakti is like the elevator ride up. Vedic philosophy will provide a nice staircase for us to get there, but bhakti is like the elevator ride up. Right? So whether Krishna is arranging for someone to worship other gods as a stepping stone, right, or inviting them to surrender to him directly, the motivation is the same. Right? And that's encouragement for our spiritual progress, expressed in ways that match our level of readiness. Right? So we should see how compassionate Krishna is, right? That he gives us all these opportunities. He gives us these little baby kindergarten steps, right? Like wherever you are, right? Wherever you are, let me facilitate a path for you to make a little bit of progress. Right? We should remember this when we're hard on ourselves, right? When we're feeling like we're not making enough progress, or remember how compassionate God is. That he creates this whole system just so that you can make a little bit of advancement from wherever you are, right? God never gives up on you, even when you give up on yourself, right? Even when that negative narrative is coming in, that's not God. No, that's your mind. And there is a strict difference. God is compassionate. He creates such a vast system so that wherever you are, if you are way out in the deep end, he provides a way for you to come a little bit closer to him. Okay, Shakti, I see your hands up. Please, what do you have for us? And by the way, if anybody has any reflections or wants to share anything, you can either put your hand up or you can just yell out. We try to keep this, we try to keep this like a dynamic, engaging thing. So we'd love to hear from everybody. Shakti.
And normally I would, but you were on a roll, so I was stopping that roll. I really wanted to hear every bit of it. It even says in the purport, it says, regardless of the situation, if one knows that both the demigods and he himself are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. His knowledge is perfect. So,
Mm.
but if you don't know that, then they're saying, then he says, then you're ignorant. So if he's still welcoming. He's saying, if you know that these demigods are part and parcel of me, so are you. I'm still there. So the knowledge is perfect. So he even states it in the purport.
So nice. Thank you, Stacy. Yeah. These demigods are part and parcel of God, just like we're part and parcel of God. Albeit the demigods have a much more powerful body and are much more capable than we are. But ultimately, we're all part of God. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Stacy or Shakti. Anybody else? Okay, welcome. Good to see you. Happy you're here.
I was so busy doing my japa, I forgot about the class.
Oh, wow. That's the best thing ever. Get so absorbed in japa that where's time? Yeah, that's a win. Wonderful. Happy to
So
hear
what was
that.
I missing?
We're talking about we're on verse 722. And does anybody want to catch Kay up? Anybody give like a two-sentence summary of what we've
Yeah,
talked
like
about so far?
about
722.
demigods.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
I can,
we're talking about how even if someone endeavors to worship a particular demigod, um, to obtain some kind of material desire,
Right.
that Krishna will, one we talked about in 721, he'll give that faith, but he'll also, when those desires are fulfilled, it's Krishna behind that. Right? It's all Krishna. Basically, that's the theme here. It's all Krishna.
It's all this.
Even
Okay,
even
okay.
when we think it's us or it's somebody else or it's all coming from Krishna.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have been through that. Uh, we started praying to Sai Baba and then this, then Lakshmi Mata. Then my husband believed in some demigods where he was wearing rings that so and so things should happen, and slowly the faith. I mean, it is like ABC, and then Krishna is helping us. We can see that, and now eventually we are here where we are learning. I mean, we have been learning about Bhagavad Gita, about Krishna, and Krishna being the taste of the water. It is Krishna being this. Krishna is the light in the sun. So I think we have climbed some steps up.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And sometimes in our Western culture, it's not so easy to relate to this concept of demigods, right? Because we don't really have it. It's not so like privy. But we can relate to the concept of making something or someone God other than God, right? We do
Yeah.
this with like money. We make money our God, right?
Yes.
Or it's like ever been in a relationship where you make that person God.
Yeah, we do that too. I mean, we have been doing that too.
Yeah. Yeah. So and recognizing, that the goal is to go directly to God. Right? And that we don't have to have these God substitutes. We don't have to take shelter in anything or anyone else because we can take the elevator ride up, the bhakti yoga path. It's the elevator ride up to the spiritual world. Right? We don't have to take all these temporary stops. Right?
I
What
mean,
what do you think? Yeah.
those who take the temporary things, maybe they are comfortable at that level. And,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, so many members in our family, like yesterday I had been to puja and they believe in Sai Baba. So there was a big puja that they did. So it's okay. I mean, if, because we know that it is Krishna in that faith,
Right.
but they are not ready to, not ready, or they are not prepared to read about Bhagavad Gita or.
Right. Yeah. And so it's stepping stones. Just like
Yes.
if if you have a relationship where with money where you kind of worship it, at
Mm.
least acknowledge that that money comes from God. And that's like a
Yes,
stepping stone
stepping stone.
to surrender to God because
Yes.
it's yeah. Thank you. So nice. What do you think, Aaron? This is Aaron's first class here with us, and you're on camera, so that means I'm going to call on you randomly.
Um, well, I was just thinking that like well, it's so moving just thinking about how compassionate God is to create all of these paths. And then I'm here with my judgmental self of like seeing people at different levels and worshiping different demigods and thinking like they're not doing it right. They don't get it. Like that's not right. Um, and just what a juxtaposition of like where God is, obviously a big juxtaposition, but like the compassionate and beautiful system that he's created. And then I am just down here thinking like I in some way that I know a more right answer and that others, they're close, but they're not there, and just having like these judgmental thoughts about where they are in the stepping stone and like in that process instead of seeing it as like um as God sees it, as like meeting them where they are and as the progress that they are making in their own way. And so just thinking about that and all the judgments I have.
Wow, that is such a profound realization and so nicely articulated. Thank you, Aaron. Yeah, that's so perfect and so relatable too, right? Because it's like wherever they are is wherever they're supposed to be. Just like wherever
Mm,
we are is wherever we're supposed to be. And God's created this system for us all. So we don't have to judge ourselves. We don't have to judge others
hmm
because it's God's system and he's in charge and we're not. So who are we even to think that we would know what's best for somebody else, much sure ourselves, right? We don't even know what's best for ourselves most of the time.
Radha, may
Yeah.
my I'm just there was a conversation going on in the messages. Some people who can't speak, they're at work or whatever.
Please
But I
read.
want, yeah, if I might. Narayani had said that she doesn't say in the purport that we should be respectful towards the demigods. And I didn't, I read the purport again. I didn't see it in the purport. Um, but, but it does say, so Mariah then comes in and says, yes, it says to respect them as devotees of God. We still have to go through the devotees to receive God. It's just acknowledging the differences between demigods, and God. So demigods, Krishna. There's a difference. So there's just establishing the difference, but we still have to respect them and treat them as such. Wait, one new thing. Oh, okay. And Narayani had said she remembers it from a purport. I thought she meant this purport.
Oh, okay.
I just thought it was an interesting thing that she mentioned, and then Mariah jumped in and also said a similar thing. So basically, not only is he not jealous, but he's even saying, "I'm not jealous, and I want you to respect them and treat them as such."
Yeah, and that's a really good point. It's like what should our relationship with demigods be? And that is what is recommended is that we respect them as great devotees. We respect them as great devotees. We don't approach them for material things, right? But we respect them as great devotees and honor them in that way. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it.
There's a woman at work who is a devotee of Lord Ganesh, and she has a little Ganesh, in a box, like kind of in a little on her windowsill, and a little Sheila, some sort. And so when I go in to talk to her, I always go right over and put my hand down and put it to my head, and I'm praying, dear Lord Ganesh, uh, remove all the obstacles to my bhakti.
Yeah. And
Now, what she's worshiping Ganesh for, I don't know, but she's so favorable to Krishna consciousness, and we talk about Krishna and everything. But it's so nice to have a demigod even at work, because I can pray to him to remove the obstacles to bhakti.
yeah, could you explain a little bit what Ganesh is for people that don't know? Because most people probably have at least seen Ganesh
With
around
the
and see him.
elephant nose.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah,
Hindu god, right? But
he's the son of Lord Shiva and his consort, was it Parvati? Is it
yeah, and what
Parvati's son? Or one of his other consorts?
I can't even
Yes,
quite
Yeah.
remember, to
Parvati,
be honest, but
Parvati.
Parvati,
Parvati.
okay.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes. And
And
then
what do people approach him for as a demigod? What's he responsible for?
obstacles.
For
Obstacles.
any puja or anything, like people buying new house, new cars,
Yeah.
they all will first do Ganesh puja.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So this is the bigger point here, and that Prabhupada's explaining, is approaching demigods for temporary things. That's
Yes.
that's what it's not. It's not even like we can approach demigods, but it's how we're approaching them. Are we approaching Ganesh to remove obstacles, or are we approaching Ganesh as a great devotee of Krishna, as a great devotee of God? Right? Because if we're approaching, if we're seeking material desires, if we have these temporary desires, right, they're roadblocks for our spiritual life. Right? They're going to distract us. They're going to keep our hearts tied up in temporary things. Right? As much as we're worshiping money, to the degree that we're worshiping money, we're not worshiping God. Right? We're not putting our security, our trust in God. We're putting our security, our trust in money. Right? So this is really it's getting at this mindset that of approaching of seeking temporary things and making that our God. Right? So this is why devotees try not to get caught up in chasing after these desires. Because we know these books teach us, right, that real fulfillment comes from going straight to the source, Krishna himself, right? And seeking real relationship. That's bhakti, right? Seeking a real relationship with God. And we know that a lower level relationship is one where somebody just goes and asks for things. Just like we talked about the last class, that friend who just only calls you when they need something, right? That's a lower level relationship. Right? But that friend who calls you just to genuinely connect, right? Just because they enjoy your company, right? That's a higher relationship. So that's what we want to approach Krishna for. And this is something for us all to think too. Am I seeking blessings through temporary things? Or am I looking to connect directly with the one who is the source of all the blessings? This is what this verse is teaching us. And I also love the point that Aaron made and that Shakti kind of hit on also is like who and also Stella, who are we to judge where people are? Right? If Krishna can be compassionate, why can't we be compassionate?
Yeah.
Why can't we be loving? Why can't we be accepting if Krishna can be all of those things for everyone? So nice. Thank you all.
Um, if I may, Anita wrote in the messages, which I think is kind of important. Ganesh wrote the Mahabharata dictated by Vyasa, by
Oh
Vyasa.
yeah. So nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they
Anita
have
wrote that.
such.
Yeah.
Say that again?
Anita wrote that.
Anita wrote
Anita.
it. Yeah,
Anita Ganesh.
they have such important roles. They do such wonderful service for God. I mean,
Yeah.
wow. They are incredible devotees. Thank you. Should we move on? Should we go to 23? Thank you all for sharing. Okay, let's do 23.
Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet.
This is sweet too. Okay, so in this verse, Krishna is making a really clear distinction. Okay, he's saying worship of the demigods versus worship of him. So he's saying that those who worship the demigods, they get results, but those results that are limited and they're temporary. Because the demigods themselves are temporary, right? Their abodes are temporary. So whatever you're gaining by worshiping them, even if it looks impressive, it won't last forever. And so it's kind of like this, like imagine a student at a top university, right? Like an Ivy League school. They've got access to like world-class professors, an incredible library.
Use pad to complete transaction.
Opportunities that could shape their entire future. Right? But instead of focusing on that, they're spending all their time chasing the best cafeteria food, right? And it's not that food's not important, because food's important. You can't study if you're hungry. But if you're at this university and all you're thinking about is lunch, you're missing the bigger picture of why you're there in the first place. So this is what Krishna is saying here, right? Life offers us this chance for something eternal, to reconnect with him, the supreme. Right? But if we get stuck only in the material side of life, even through demigod worship, we're selling ourselves short. Right? We're chasing something that's temporary when eternal fulfillment is available. And again, even if we're not worshiping demigods, we can relate to this of like we're in this university. We're all in this university. Right? But we get so obsessed with chasing food, chasing partners, chasing jobs, right? That we miss out on the actual opportunity here. Right? And the actual opportunity here is this higher spiritual realization, to connect with God and to come out of the maze altogether. Right? Go to Krishna's spiritual abode, right? Which is where all of the bliss, where all of the happiness, where all the as much as your conception, as much as our small tiny conceptions can even conceive of that, our small minds can even conceive of that, it's like a million times more, right? So however peaceful, blissful, whatever joy you've experienced here, take that, multiply it by 500 million billion, and like the biggest number you can think of, that's what life is like in Krishna's eternal abode. Right? But we're here in this university and we're distracted by everything. Everything that gives us just like a tiny little spark of that happiness. And then we mistake that to really be something. Right? So we kind of lose sight. And this is what happens with demigod worship, right? Because, again, they're approaching demigods for something material. It's like they're kind of missing the point. Right? And again, demigod worship, it has value. It can help people move from materialistic living to a more pious, elevated consciousness. That's the point. It's a stepping stone. But it shouldn't be mistaken for the whole thing, for the main course. Right? Because it's just a stepping stone to start to expand your consciousness. But don't get distracted by all these temporary material things. Right? Because even if you're worshiping demigods, right, and it has all these rules and regulations, even if you're following them perfectly, you do it all perfectly, right? The highest that you reach is the planet of the demigods, right? And this is material planet. So even when your karma runs out, you're right back down again. This is what you get stuck in. So on the other hand, if Krishna says that his devotees, even if you're approaching God for something other than devotion at first, even if you have some material desires, that's okay, right? You'll just by approaching him, just by that relationship, you'll become purified and you'll ultimately attain his supreme planet. Now that's spiritual. God's planet is spiritual, right? This final abode. Right? It's eternal, it's spiritual destination. It's not temporary, it's not dependent on karma. Right? That's the big difference in these abodes of the demigods. If you worship demigods, you go to the planets of the demigods. So that's a material planet. Sure, you're going to enjoy more than you do here, right? But then once your karmic credits run out, you'll be back here to start all again, right? Whereas if you worship God, you attain God's abode, which is a spiritual planet. Right? So again, we don't want to disrespect the demigods. We want to honor them, see them as servants of Krishna, respect them in that way. Right? But check your heart. Check what your biggest desire is in your heart. Right? And check in often. Check in, if not daily, hourly, right? Constantly. What's that ultimate goal in your heart? Is it eternal love and freedom? Right? Is it eternal love and freedom? Because it probably oftentimes gets pulled away at these temporary allurements, right? But we have to constantly remind ourselves, right, that our heart's ultimate goal is eternal love and freedom, right? And we get distracted. We get distracted by the food in this university and it pulls us off course, right? But remember what's waiting for us in that spiritual abode, which is like more joy, bliss, peace, connecting, like everything you can, the best you've ever felt in this world, right? Multiplied by the biggest number you can think of, right? Infinity, right? That's what's available for us in the spiritual abode. So let's not get too distracted, right? In this temporary maze of material existence, right? So this is the takeaway, okay? The material side of life, it's real. It's real, but it's not the whole picture. It's not the whole picture. Animals can eat, animals can sleep, animals can survive. Right? But what makes human life unique is our ability to look beyond the temporary and to aim for the eternal. Right? We can have all different levels of enjoyment for food, for our sleeping arrangements, for our survival. Right? You can go to a restaurant, you can spend $200 on dinner. Or you can, heat up some ramen noodles at home. Either way, your stomach's going to be satisfied. Either way, you're eating, you're surviving. And we get so stuck in trying to make these pleasures, trying to like squeeze out all the joy we can get out of these things. And it's like they themselves is limited. You can even go out to a $200 meal and it's like the most miserable experience ever. Right? Because our souls need something more than that. Our souls need something more than that. And this human life, we have the capacity, our consciousness has the capacity to look beyond the temporary and aim for the eternal. But we get stuck in trying to derive as much happiness out of eating, sleeping, mating, defending, right? When they have a finite amount of happiness available for us. But we get so distracted. It's like a broken toy you just keep playing with. Okay, what if I do this? What if I spend this much money to fix it? And it's like, no, put the toy down. This isn't right for you. But we just can't. Right? We have to realize we have so much more capacity than that. Krishna's reminding us, right? Don't settle for the sparks when the blazing sun is right in front of you. That's what we're doing. We're settling for the sparks. And we're turning away from the sun so that we can chase the sparks. Right? So this is why he's urging us to balance our material responsibilities with a deeper focus on spiritual growth. Right? Because only the spiritual side leads to something lasting, something eternal. So again, we're in that university, it's important to eat, but don't get so caught up in chasing the best meal that you miss out on the opportunity right in front of you.
Yeah, they could go to class and hear from a teacher. That's what we're doing. We're going to class with a teacher.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's so easy to see, if you have a college student or, maybe you have a child or you remember when you were in college and it's like, you just don't take advantage of all the opportunities, especially if you're a parent paying that bill. You're like, you need to go to class. You need to apply yourself. Right? But the reality is we're all doing that here. Right? This is our opportunity. This is our opportunity to connect with God, right? In this earthly existence. This is a rare opportunity. And a rare body. We have this opportunity, the capacity in this body to actually understand and connect with these spiritual truths. My dog doesn't have that capacity. Right? And we're just wasting it. We're just wasting it by chasing things that even species in super low consciousness can do. Right? Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. We just find refined ways to do this, right? And then we feel sophisticated. That's what it's about, right? Sophisticated. I'm paying $200 for this dinner. Look at how classy I am. Look at how evolved I am. No, that's not being evolved, right? You've just refined an animal pleasure. Okay, right? Let's use our consciousness to connect with something enduring, something eternal. right? That's evolution. That's when you're really evolved. Your consciousness is really evolved.
It's it's like you go to that restaurant that you're talking, and whatever restaurant, that refined restaurant, you spend all this money, right? It's maybe an hour at the dinner, and you leave there, you're like, oh my God, I'm so full, all these things going on. Or, or I spend an hour in Radha Prithi's class or reading Bhagavatam, and in an hour, I'm like, wow, I can't, that was great. Like, I mean, like if you think about just even now, think about what you used to do for an hour. And that refinement was hysterical because it's so true. People think, well, I'm going to go to this fancy restaurant. Yeah, that is going to be the ticket. And it's just not the ticket. You're just spending more
It's
money
not the
for the same
ticket.
exact thing.
Yeah, and then you have to go home and you have to work the next day so that you can pay for that refined enjoyment, right? I did that the other day for my husband's birthday. We went to this nice restaurant. We never go to nice restaurants. I've never been to one, but his family came into town, and anyway, we ended up doing it. On the drive home, in my head, I'm just like, that was such a waste of money. I was like, it's like, man, and then it just makes life more complicated because you got to figure out a way to pay for all this nice stuff. And it's like, is it really filling up your heart? You know what fills up your heart the most is the connecting conversations that you have over dinner, right? And you don't need to go to a what do they call those Michelin star restaurant to do that, right? No, we get so confused with how to fill up our heart. It's really quite sad, actually. So we get so confused with what will make our heart full, and then we become like slaves to working, right? To pay for all of these things that we didn't really even need. We just got confused. No, we need connection with God. Start there. Start there, right? And then your material life can support that. And that is health. That is true holistic health. What do you think, Aaron?
I think it's so easy to think about in this context and in class. And I think it's so hard to implement. Like, you know, just like there's so many times where I'm rushing through my japa, because I need to like get dinner started or, just so I think that for me, the challenge is it's like just this constant reminder of like how to connect to that enduring and higher truth while you're also doing the million things you're doing to like live and work and eat and survive and how to yeah do it all even though like your intention is that the Krishna maybe your hope and intention is that Krishna is the priority, but there are really so many things that get in the way of that. And um yeah, so the eternal, not eternal, but the this life question of how to balance it all.
Yeah, and that's a good question. How do we balance material responsibilities with our spiritual growth in our daily lives? How do you do it? How do you do it, Aaron?
Well, I don't know that I do it well. um I think it's more the times where I'm like, doing multitasking japa, or, you know, just even multitasking in general when I really feel like, um, I know I'm not doing this right, or like I know I'm, I love the concept of like the simple living, right? And I love the idea of slowing down. Um, but it doesn't also change the fact that there's so much, at least that we think we have to do.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. I think we all feel that struggle too, and that like pull in different directions. What are the
Initially,
But
rest? Yeah.
what I was just going to add that I think like just having been on retreat with you this past weekend, every time I do get to pause and step away from the day to day, I feel like it is always such a grounding experience to be like, oh yeah, like, oh yeah, I need to get up early for this reason. Like, oh yeah, I need to, read more scripture and like, so I appreciate that guidance that I've heard over and over again that like you have to make time in every day. You have to make, a day in every month or ideally a month in every year, and really to be able to pause all of the material responsibilities and get grounded in what's important and try to bring that back each time and weave it throughout.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe even just like remembering how we feel when we do it. Like when we go on retreat, when we do wake up early, when we do come to a class like this and spend this time connecting and immersed. I see right now you're not distracted at all. You're fully present, right? That's a sacrifice to do that. But so you're not multitasking. You're just talking about multitasking. You're here, you're present. How does it feel when we do that? And maybe that can even just be an impetus to encourage us when our lives start getting busy and to come back and to do that, to take that time, to go to bed early so that we can wake up early and have that quiet, fully focused time. Right?
um, I wanted to share, Erin. It took me a while to get like into that habit of getting up early so that I had the time to really. And sometimes there are times where I get out of my 16 rounds, maybe I get 10 of them done and I have six left. And I know nighttime is not going to happen. So I have to pick points during the day. And sometimes it's when I'm driving. I've got one hand in my B bag and I'm driving and I'm like, Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare.
You just
So I'm
make do.
multitasking, but I did so that's what I was able to give that day
Mm,
that day. There are days that I do my whole japa in the morning and I'm able to get it done. So the point is, I'm driving or you're doing whatever it is you're doing, but you're still thinking of God, right? So
mm,
that is a huge jump. And I think also Krishna would want, I don't know what Krishna would want, but I'm thinking that he would want you to be really, really gentle with yourself. Like,
mm.
really be grateful for the things that you are doing right now. And if you are multitasking, because that's what you're able to do right now, then that means you're still thinking of Krishna, right? So it's
Perfect.
maybe it's not ultimately where you want to be, but it's still thinking of Krishna.
Love
So
it.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Stacey. Yeah, sometimes it's just the best we can do. We have to remind ourselves this is the best I can do. That's okay. Thanks. Yeah, I feel like I've had a few days like that lately. I'll be honest, I haven't even gotten all my rounds in, which never happens to me. But I've been sick. I was sick when I got home from the retreat, and I noticed my milk supply started to go down. And I thought, oh my gosh, because feeding my daughter. So I started sleeping. I've been sleeping the Monday, Tuesday, I slept like 10-hour nights. And it was like, I felt crappy. I felt like I miss chanting. I miss my time, but it was like, okay, this is I have to do this and it'll get back on track. This is the best I can do. Sometimes it just has to be okay. Yeah, thank you. And I love that you said that too, that Krishna's a compassionate God. He understands. He's there for us no matter what. Even when we're hard on ourselves, right? When we're not there for ourselves, Krishna still is. So just do the best you can do and pray that he helps you get back on track. Right?
Last thing I
Just
want to say is what my guru said is Krishna knows your intention.
mm,
So always remember that, Erin. That helped me through so many things, like you were saying, Radhapati, where you weren't able to, or you're like right now I'm sick, and so I hear that, and sometimes Krishna knows your intention. So if your
mm,
intention is to do 16 rounds every day, but you're not well and you need to take care of your daughter, it's okay. Like Krishna's not like, oh my God. He's not one of those gods with like the stick. He's going, please, Radha, please, I love you. Take care of your daughter. That's how I see it.
mm. Thank you. Thank you, Shakti. World pearls of wisdom here. Meg, I see you're not on camera, but if you want to share anything, we'd love to hear from you. Meg and Julia. Here's our new to our live crew. We're so happy to have you. If you have anything to share, we'd love to hear. But if not, no pressure. So don't feel pressure either. Anybody else want to share anything? Any reflections, anything that came up for you this class?
Think about Krishna.
Think about Krishna.
All he cares is about your intention.
Hmm.
That is the
Thank you.
takeaway.
Sometimes that's the best we can do. You're just driving, all the things, you're at the doctor's appointment. Just think about Krishna. Just think about Krishna. Take a drink of water. Think about Krishna. Right? See the blue sky. Think about Krishna. Thank you. Thanks, Kay. Anybody else? Stella, do you have anything for us?
Oh,
Oh,
I
Meg's
just,
on too. Meg, I want to hear from you next.
oh yeah, no, go to Meg, please. I want to hear.
One of my things is I will do this call on my iPad. On the phone, I can't find my buttons. So I'm sorry. Anyhow, this is my first call and I love it. I've done 2 retreats. Um, I'm spiritually a little bit different than where everybody is, so I'm hesitant to talk. But I'm right along. I'm in alignment with everything you're saying. Um, and so it's like some of the other demigods I use as ascended masters. So I'm not exactly where everybody is. So I'm hesitant to talk because I don't want to be inappropriate. Um, but that's my thing is it's like, and I love angels, but everything you're saying, I don't I'm always grateful when I see young people working on their spirituality because I did it alone when I was younger and it was slower. And I'm at a stage now with being an empty nester. I have more time. I'm not going to say it's easy because things are different, but it's like when I see young people like on this call, it's like, thank you, God, because any step we take, every of us, and any community we're in, it's hard to find a community of like-minded people. So I am so grateful for everybody of all ages. Because I remember the little ones and all this stuff. Now, when I'm sick, it's easy. My husband, he can take his own stuff. You know what I mean? There's no little ones to take care of. But I had that time. So I just, one of the messages that got me was, it helped me when I was a lot younger was, I'm doing the best I can with what I have. Thank you, God. And,
Mm,
because I was so hard on myself, and none of us have to be. It's just like if we turn it over, we don't have to be hard on ourselves. I'm doing the best I can where I am. So, but thank you. And I love everybody here. So it's just grateful to see everybody. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you, Meg. And never feel like anything's inappropriate to say anything. Even if beliefs are different or that's okay. Like that's okay. We accept everyone, right? Whatever your beliefs are, whatever, we're all just doing the best we can. Right? We're all doing what we're doing where we feel most connected, and that's all we can do. So thanks for coming. Thanks for sharing your energy and your light, Meg.
Very nice to see you, Meg.
It's okay.
And Stella, are you still on, Stella? There you are.
Yeah.
You wanna close us out here?
Yeah, I remember Meg from the last retreat. Yeah, I think that's what we should. My takeaway is, I'm going to go into my workday, just trying to see Krishna everywhere, and that, no matter what happens in the day, it's my intention is to remember him. Whether and not be hard on myself. Those two things. Remember Krishna. Don't be hard on yourself.
Perfect. Let's do it. Let's do it till we meet again. And we have our live thread. If you want to be on our live thread, I can put you on there where we kind of check in with each other throughout the week and hold each other accountable, hold ourselves accountable to these practices as we move forward. We share wins, we share losses, we share encouragement, inspiration, because we need this. Just like Meg said, we need this spiritual family, this spiritual community to keep us going. We can't do it alone. We can't do it alone. So let's do this. I like that. Let's do the best we can and try to remember Krishna. Try to remember Krishna and do the best you can. Perfect. Thank you all. Thank you all.
Hare Krishna.